Welcome to Mind Research Rewired. We unveil scientific truths to transform confusion into clear thinking. Unlock a sharper, more effective you based on proven research. Subscribe now and elevate your life.
How often do you really trust your gut feeling? And, how often does that inner sense actually lead you to the right answer?
It's a great question.
It is, isn't it? Because intuition, that quick, automatic insight, it can feel like an incredible superpower sometimes, guiding us to brilliant solutions.
Absolutely. But then again,
Well, but it can also lead us dangerously astray.
exactly, that internal sense of knowing, it can be incredibly compelling. Doesn't matter if you're a seasoned pro making a snap decision or like just choosing where to eat dinner.
Yeah.
But that powerful feeling of certainty, it doesn't always map to actual accuracy. Often doesn't, in fact.
And that's exactly what we're tackling in this deep dive. We're exploring this really intriguing world where intuition meets expertise. And we're drawing from a truly groundbreaking paper. What's so unique about it, I think, is that it comes from two giants in the field.
Right.
Daniel Kahneman and Gary Klein. And on the surface, they seem to be on opposite sides of this whole debate.
Yeah, you think so. Kahneman, famous for revealing all the flaws and biases in our judgment.
The Nobel laureate.
That's him. And then Klein, who's really been a champion of expert intuition, studying how people make good decisions in tough spots.
So what's truly remarkable and kind of the core of this paper is that these two researchers, coming from such different angles,
One focused on biases, the other on successes.
they actually found profound common ground. Their mission, as they put it, was to map out the boundary conditions.
Right. The lines separating genuine, trustworthy, intuitive skill from just being overconfident.
And that core question is critical for all of us, really. Under what specific conditions can professional intuition truly be trusted? And when is it most likely to lead us into, significant error?
Because, and this is key,
Yeah.
your subjective confidence, that feeling of, I know this is right, it's surprisingly not a reliable indicator of accuracy.
That's a big one. Okay, so to really get this convergence, we probably need to understand where each of them was coming from first, right? The two perspectives.
Yeah.
Exactly. Let's start with naturalistic decision-making, or NDM Klein's camp, so to speak.
Okay.
This approach really zeroes in on how experts make successful intuitive judgments. We're talking complex, real-world situations here. High stakes, often.
So NDM is kind of admiring intuition's successes.
You could say that.
Okay.
An admiring stance, they sometimes call it. Early studies that set the stage looked at master chess players. Back in the 40s, de Groot.
Right, the chess studies.
Yeah. They found grandmasters could rapidly identify promising moves. What was interesting was they didn't necessarily think more steps ahead than weaker players.
Oh, so what was the difference then?
It was more about perceptual skill, an ability to instantly recognize complex patterns on the board, like seeing configurations, not just pieces.
Ah, pattern recognition.
Exactly. And Herbert Simon, the polymath, pioneer in AI and cognitive psychology, he later defined intuition quite simply as recognition of patterns stored in memory.
I like that. It sort of demystifies it, takes away the magic and grounds it in skill, really. Precisely. It's a highly developed skill.
So the NDM approach, it gained traction with studies on fireground commanders, people making life or death calls under intense pressure.
Yes, exactly. Klein and his team did seminal work there. You might think these commanders are weighing dozens of options, like a comparison chart in their head.
Yeah, logically comparing pros and cons.
But that's not what they found. Often, these commanders generated a single plausible option first.
Just one.
Often, yeah. Then they'd mentally simulate it. Does this work? What could go wrong? If it seems viable, they act.
Yeah.
It's called the recognition primed decision strategy, or RPD. It leverages their deep, often unarticulated, tacit knowledge. They just know how fires behave, how buildings react, based on experience.
That's fascinating. But the NDM movement, its focus wasn't purely on these successes, was? I remember reading it got a big push after a failure.
That's right. It actually gained significant momentum after a catastrophic failure in expert decision-making, the USS Vincennes incident in 1988.
Where they shot down an Iranian airliner.
Tragically, yes. That event really spurred intense research into how experts make decisions under extreme stress, highlighting the urgent need to understand both success and failure. It underscored this need to demystify intuition.
So how do they do that? How do you get at that tacit knowledge if the experts themselves can't always explain it?
Good question. NDM researchers developed methods like cognitive task analysis, or CTA, basically carefully observing, interviewing experts to unpack the subtle cues and thought processes they use.
Okay, like an example.
Sure. Think about neonatal intensive care unit nurses, NICU nurses. Really high-stakes environment.
Definitely.
Researchers found these experienced nurses could often detect life-threatening infections in infants before the blood tests came back positive.
Wow.
How? Well, initially they couldn't really articulate how they knew. They just had a feeling, a sense something was wrong.
That gut feeling again.
Right. But through CTA, by meticulously analyzing what they were looking at, what they were doing, the researchers identified a whole range of subtle cues the nurses were picking up on.
Things they weren't even conscious of using.
Often, yes. And interestingly, some of these cues were even the opposite of what you'd look for in adult infections.
No kidding.
It's a great example of NDM's admiring stance, trying to understand the brilliance, the skill in their thinking, not just find fault.
Okay, so that's the NDM side, focused on expertise, tacit knowledge, often in high-stakes, real-world settings, admiring the successes. But for every story of intuitive brilliance Klein was uncovering, Kahneman and his colleagues were kind of doing the opposite, right? Peeling back the layers on intuition's flaws.
Exactly. This brings us to the other major perspective, heuristics and biases, or HB.
Right?
This approach, it really highlights the systematic errors, the mental shortcuts, the biases that often creep into our judgment, even expert judgment.
Where did this line of thinking start?
Well, a key moment was back in the 1950s. Paul Meehl published this groundbreaking monograph. He reviewed about 20 studies. And these studies compared human judges, mostly clinical psychologists, making diagnoses or prognoses to simple statistical models, like formulas.
Hey.
The finding was startling, really. The algorithms, the simple formulas, were almost always more accurate, even when they had less information than the clinicians.
Wow! Even with less data. How?
Meehl argued it was due to systematic errors and, crucially, inconsistency in human judgment. Clinicians might weigh factors differently from day to day or patient to patient. The formula doesn't.
Okay.
Meehl was famously quite annoyed, actually, by what he saw as clinicians' uncritical reliance on their intuition.
I can imagine. So it's about consistency.
That's a huge part of it. And this was driven home even more powerfully in the 70s by Goldberg's bootstrapping effect.
Bootstrapping?
Yeah, it showed that statistical models created by analyzing a clinician's own past judgments. Those models were often more accurate than the clinician making new judgments in real time.
Wait, so a model of my own thinking beats me?
Often, yes. The model captures the essence of your judgment strategy, but strips away the noise, the inconsistency, the bad days. It's a sobering thought.
It really is. And Kahneman himself, he had a personal run-in with this early on, didn't he?
He did. A very formative experience back in 1955. He was involved in assessing officer candidates for the Israeli army.
Okay.
And he described feeling this powerful sense of knowing each candidate, a real conviction he could predict their future success based on interviews and exercises.
That subjective confidence we talked about.
Exactly. But later, when they looked at the statistical feedback on how those candidates actually performed, the validity of his assessments and his colleagues was negligible, basically close to zero.
Ouch.
He coined a term for this experience, the illusion of validity, that feeling of knowing completely detached from actual predictive accuracy.
The term really captures it.
And the early HB studies, like one with the Tversky in 71, showed just how deep these faulty intuitions run. They studied sophisticated researchers, statisticians even, people who knew the rules of statistics inside out.
Right, the experts.
But when asked to make intuitive judgments about things like required sample sizes for experiments, they often made poor choices. They failed to apply rules they absolutely knew were correct.
Even the statisticians.
Even them. It showed how easily our fast, intuitive System 1 thinking can override our slower, more deliberate System 2 reasoning, even when we should know better.
So you've got NDM with its admonishing stance towards expert intuition, and HB with its skeptical attitude, often recommending algorithms over human judgment.
Polar opposites, it seems.
You can see why everyone expected them to just disagree fundamentally.
And yet, they didn't. Despite the different starting points, the different methods, even maybe different emotional attitudes towards intuition, Kahneman and Klein found substantial agreement.
Really? On what?
Well, crucially, they both ended up endorsing Herbert Simon's definition of intuition we mentioned earlier.
Ah, the recognition definition.
Exactly. Intuition is nothing more and nothing less than recognition. That simple idea became a bridge. It grounds intuition in experience and learning, taking away the magic, but acknowledging its reality.
That's a powerful point of convergence, and they both work within that dual process model of thinking, right? System 1 and System 2.
Yes, absolutely. They both acknowledge that framework. You've got System 1, automatic, effortless, involuntary. That's where intuitive judgments spring from. Recognizing a face, feeling fear, that gut reaction.
And System 2, controlled, voluntary, effortful, like doing math problems or carefully weighing options or checking the output of System 1.
Right, and you can see how both NDM and HB fit here. NDM often focuses on skilled, System 1 judgments born from deep experience, like the fire chief's RPD, while HB often highlights System 1 when it uses those simplifying heuristics, those mental shortcuts that could lead us astray, especially when we lack true expertise.
That makes sense. The same system, but operating differently depending on experience in the situation. And this shared understanding, it led them to agree on two absolutely necessary conditions for skilled intuition to actually develop and be trustworthy.
Yes. This is really the core of their joint paper. Two critical conditions.
What's this first one?
The first is that you need to be operating in what they call a high validity environment.
High validity environment. Okay, what does that mean exactly?
It means the environment itself must have stable, predictable relationships between cues, things you can objectively identify, and subsequent events or outcomes. There have to be real patterns there to learn.
So valid clues have to exist even if you don't consciously know what they all are.
Exactly. The regularities have to be objectively present in the world.
Okay, so examples, like the firefighting we talked about. Signs a building might collapse.
Perfect example. Or the NICU nurses picking up subtle but consistent signs of infant illness. Chess is another classic. The patterns on the board reliably indicate strengths and weaknesses.
Bridge, poker too, I guess. There's uncertainty, but skill clearly increases your chances over time because there are underlying statistical regularities.
Correct. Now contrast that with environments that have low or even zero validity.
Like stock picking.
That's the textbook example. Predicting individual stock prices long term. If truly valid, consistent cues existed to reliably predict future prices, that information would already be exploited and priced in, eliminating the edge. The market is designed, in theory, to be unpredictable in that way.
Makes sense. Any other examples of low validity?
Long-term political forecasting is another one. Philip Tetlock's famous research showed that expert political pundits were generally no better than chance or even novices at predicting far future events.
So wasn't that the experts weren't smart, it was that the task itself.
The task itself was likely impossible due to the sheer complexity and unpredictability. The environment lacks stable cues.
Right. And then there are those wicked environments, as Robin Hogarth called them.
Yes, those are particularly dangerous. That's where the regularities aren't just absent, they're actively misleading.
Misleading, how?
The example they often give is quite chilling. An early 20th century physician who believed he could diagnose typhoid by palpating patients' tongues.
Okay.
He felt he was getting good feedback. He palpated the tongue, confirmed his diagnosis, and indeed, many of those patients got sicker or spread the disease.
Yeah.
His intuition felt validated.
Oh, no.
But he was unknowingly spreading the disease himself with unwashed hands between patients. The feedback loop was real, but it was confirming a disastrously wrong intuition. The environment was actively tricking him.
Wow. That's a powerful warning. Okay, so condition 1, a high validity environment with real learnable cues. What's condition 2?
Condition 2 is an adequate opportunity to learn the environment's regularities.
Okay, so you need the cues to exist and you need a chance to actually learn them.
Exactly. And this isn't just about putting in time.
Yeah.
It requires prolonged practice, yes, but crucially, the feedback needs to be both rapid and unequivocal.
Right.
Clear, unambiguous.
You need to know quickly and clearly if your intuition was right or wrong.
Yes. Think about the chess master again. An estimated 10,000 hours of focused practice, constantly seeing outcomes of moves, analyzing games.
Right. Or the NICU nurses. They saw countless sick infants, got clear feedback on diagnoses and outcomes relatively quickly.
Or experienced fireground commanders. Years of real fires, simulated fires, debriefing incidents, constantly refining their internal models based on clear feedback.
So without these specific learning opportunities, with that kind of clear feedback, even if the environment has valid cues.
Then developing valid intuition becomes, as Kahneman and Klein put it, a lucky accident or akin to magic, and we do not believe in magic.
Right. Both conditions are truly necessary. You need the learnable environment and need the chance to learn it properly.
That's the core agreement.
So if these conditions aren't met, what happens? This brings us back to the perils of imperfect intuition, doesn't it?
It does, and that critical point.
Well,
Your subjective experience, your feeling of confidence, is not a reliable indicator of accuracy.
there's no little alarm bell that tells you, warning, low validity environment, or insufficient practice.
Wouldn't that be nice? No, there's no internal subjective marker that reliably distinguishes truly skilled intuition born from meeting those two conditions from a flawed heuristic-based guess that just feels right.
And this is where all that heuristics and biases research becomes so important again, right? Explaining why those flawed intuitions feel right.
Exactly. It helps us understand the mechanisms. Take the classic bat and ball problem again.
Okay, refresh my memory.
A ball and a bat together cost $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost?
Ah, right. The immediate answer that pops into your head is 10 cents.
For most people, yes. That's system one shouting out the easy, intuitive-seeming answer.
But it's wrong. If the ball is 10 cents, the bat is $1.10, total $1.20.
Right. The correct answer is 5 cents. Ball 5 cents, bat $1.05, total $1.10. But many intelligent people get it wrong because they don't engage system two to check the intuitive answer.
It feels so obviously right, you don't question it. A perfect example of confidence diverging from accuracy.
A stark one. Another pervasive bias Kahneman and Tversky studied is the anchoring phenomenon.
Anchoring. That's when an initial number influences your later estimates.
Precisely. Even if the number is completely irrelevant. If I ask you, is the average price of German cars more or less than $100,000 before asking you to estimate the actual average price?
My estimate will be higher than if you had anchored me with, say, $30,000.
Significantly higher, typically. Even for experts in the field, like car dealers, that initial anchor, $100 year or $30 K, automatically influences the information you retrieve from memory and biases your final number. It's an unconscious system one process.
It's amazing how easily we're swayed. And what about attribute substitution?
Yes, that's another key HB concept. It's when we're faced with a difficult question and we unconsciously substitute an easier one to answer instead.
Okay, like what?
Say you're asked to predict the graduating GPA of a student based only on the fact they are reading fluently at age 4. That's a hard statistical prediction question.
Right, requires knowing correlations, base rates.
Exactly. So what our intuition often does is substitute an easier question. How impressive is it for a child to read fluently at age 4?
Very impressive.
Right. And so the intuitive prediction of their GPA tends to match that feeling of impressiveness. It's high. But that answer ignores statistical realities like regression to the mean. It answers the wrong question.
So you feel confident because the answer to the easy question is clear, but it's not actually answering the hard question accurately.
That's the mechanism. And the core issue is that these flawed intuitions, driven by heuristics like anchoring or attribute substitution, tend to pop up precisely when those two necessary conditions for skill, high validity, and opportunity to learn are absent.
Because we haven't developed true pattern recognition for that specific task?
Correct. People often don't know the true source of their intuitions, and our confidence, unfortunately, is often driven more by the internal consistency of the information we're considering or how easily it comes to mind, rather than its actual quality or predictive power.
Which leads neatly into this idea of fractionated expertise, doesn't it? Even genuine experts aren't experts at everything.
Absolutely. Expertise is often compartmentalized, can be incredibly skilled and intuitive in one part of your job, but surprisingly poor in another, even within the same profession.
Is there research on this?
Yes. James Shanto did a review back in the early 90s looking at expertise across different professions.
What did he find?
Well, some professions consistently showed high levels of expertise. Think astronomers, chess masters, test pilots. Their environments often meet the two conditions.
Okay.
But others consistently showed poor intuitive performance, like stockbrokers making long-term forecasts, clinical psychologists doing long-term predictions, intelligence analysts making geopolitical forecasts, often low-validity environments.
But what was really telling, I thought, were the professions that appeared on both lists, sometimes good, sometimes poor.
Exactly. Like nurses, physicians, auditors.
Auditors, how so?
Well, auditors tend to be very good, very accurate when dealing with hard data like accounts receivable. The cues are clear, feedback is usually available, high validity, opportunity to learn, but they tend to be less reliable when dealing with soft data, like trying to intuitively detect indicators of management fraud. The cues there are much more ambiguous. Feedback is often delayed or non-existent, lower validity, less opportunity for clear learning.
So same profession, different tasks, different levels of intuitive skill.
Precisely. And for Kahneman, this fractionation links directly back to that illusion of validity.
Ow!
Because professionals who are genuinely expert and rightly confident in one area, like the auditor with accounts receivable, might mistakenly generalize that feeling of confidence to other areas of their job where the conditions aren't met, like fraud detection or long-term predictions.
The confidence spills over, even when the skill doesn't.
Exactly. Whereas experts in fields where the methods are very standardized, feedback is constant and clear, and the consequences of error are direct. Think weather forecasters, maybe engineers.
They tend to have a better sense of their limits.
They often develop a better appreciation for the boundaries of their competence. They know when their intuition is likely reliable and when it's not.
Okay, so given all these complexities, the biases, the fractionated expertise, the illusion of validity, it's not surprising the conversation turns towards algorithms, right? As a way to maybe help out.
It's a natural progression. If human intuition is unreliable under certain quite common conditions, maybe formal models or algorithms can do better.
And the evidence seems to support that in many cases.
It does, especially in those low validity environments. Remember Meal's findings. A large meta-analysis by Grove and others in 2000 looked at 136 studies comparing clinical judgment human experts versus mechanical judgment algorithms or formulas.
What was the result?
The algorithms were found to be superior in about half the studies and tied with the experts in most of the rest. The humans rarely outperform the algorithm significantly. This covered predicting everything from college performance and job turnover to medical diagnoses and even suicide attempts.
That's pretty compelling. Any real-world examples where algorithms have taken over?
Oh, absolutely. Think about loan approvals.
Yeah.
That used to be largely a human judgment call by a loan officer.
Right. Subjective assessment.
Now, it's heavily dominated by algorithms using objective data points, income, credit history, debt levels. The result: generally fairer, faster, cheaper, and often more accurate decisions, especially at scale. These strip out inconsistency and many biases.
So where do algorithms perform best, according to this framework?
Interestingly, they seem to perform best at the two extremes of validity.
Extremes.
Yes. First, when validity is very low, like those complex prediction tasks, the algorithm's consistency helps overcome human inconsistency and bias, even if it's just finding weak signals.
Okay. And the other extreme?
When validity is very high. In highly predictable, stable environments, think about automated systems like airport baggage handling or some public transport systems. The algorithm avoids human lapses of attention or fatigue in situations where performance needs to be nearly perfect.
That makes sense. But the NDM perspective, client side, probably adds some caveats about algorithms.
They do. They emphasize that building and implementing effective algorithms isn't trivial. You need reliable, quantifiable data. You need a large set of similar cases to build the model on. You need to carefully consider the costs versus benefits. It's not always feasible or optimal.
And there are challenges even when algorithms are used.
Yes, a shared challenge both sides acknowledge is something called automation bias.
Automation bias?
Yeah, it's where humans become less vigilant or overly trusting when an algorithm is in charge. They might miss errors the algorithm makes or fail to intervene when they should. So integrating algorithms effectively with human oversight is tricky.
So it's not just a case of algorithms good, humans bad, or vice versa.
Definitely not. It's about understanding the conditions under which each is likely to perform best and how they might work together.
Which actually leads to a really interesting synthesis point, doesn't it? Methods that try to combine the strengths of both approaches.
Yes, and a brilliant example developed by Gary Klein himself is the pre-mortem method.
The pre-mortem, I love this idea. Explain it.
Okay, so imagine a project team is about to launch a major plan they're all pretty confident about.
Standard situation, lots of optimism.
Right. Now, instead of just asking what could go wrong, the pre-mortem facilitator says, okay, imagine we're months down the line. The project has failed. It's been a complete disaster.
Ouch. Starting pessimistic.
Exactly. Then everyone on the team takes a few minutes to independently write down all the reasons why they think it failed.
Ah, so you're framing it as a definite past event.
Yes, that prospective hindsight is key. It turns out people are much better at generating potential problems and criticisms when they imagine failure as a certainty, rather than just a possibility, it frees them up.
And it probably counters groupthink, too, that pressure to agree with the plan.
Absolutely. It legitimizes dissent and surfaces potential risks that might otherwise stay hidden due to overconfidence or politeness. It beautifully combines the HB concern about overconfidence and bias with the NDM respect for expert knowledge and foresight within the team.
That's a really practical, powerful technique. Okay, so wrapping this up, we've journeyed through NDM's admiration for expertise, HB's skepticism, their surprising convergence. What's the big takeaway? The core insight from this Kahneman and Klein collaboration?
I think the ultimate conclusion, the thing to really hold on to, is this. If you want to know whether to trust an intuition, yours or someone else's, you have to look beyond the feeling of confidence.
That subjective certainty isn't the guide.
It's not. Instead, you need to examine two things. First, the actual predictability, the validity of the environment. Are there stable, learnable cues?
Condition 1.
And second, the individual's opportunity to learn those cues through prolonged practice with rapid, clear feedback. If both of those conditions are met, intuition can be trustworthy, even brilliant. If not, you should be skeptical, no matter how confident the person feels.
So intuition really is this fascinating duality, isn't it? It can be an incredible superpower, a product of deep learning.
Or it can be the source of profound, systematic error, driven by biases and illusions.
Which leads us, I think, to a really provocative final thought for you, the listener. The next time you have that strong gut feeling, that powerful intuition, whether it's in your personal life or a big professional decision.
Pause for a moment.
Yeah, pause and ask yourself, am I actually operating in a high validity environment here? Are there real stable patterns I could have learned?
And then, have I truly had enough practice with clear, rapid feedback to have learned them? Did I get the chance to tune my intuition properly for this specific type of judgment?
Or am I maybe falling prey to the illusion of validity? Am I feeling confident simply because it feels right, even though the conditions for true intuitive skill might be missing?
Just asking yourself those critical questions, bringing that awareness from System 2 to check on System 1, that alone is a really powerful step toward making wiser, more reliable choices in a pretty complex world.
Yes, that is something for all of us to think about. We have come to the end of today's deep dive. If you like the content of our podcast and learned something useful, please subscribe to support our channel. We will continue to unveil cutting-edge scientific papers to bring clarity to your thinking and elevate your life. Thank you.